Welcome to Atypical, an offbeat take on news in the addiction recovery field. I'm co-host Mary Crocker-Cook from the San Jose City College Alcohol and Drug Studies program.
And I am co-host Gary Montreza, Executive Director of Pathway Society in San Jose.
Our purpose is to both educate and entertain with the recent news stories about the addiction field. We've set up our podcast in sections that include drugs and news and ethics challenge and prevention. Be sure and subscribe.
So here we are, before we start our first little section.
Yeah.
An announcement.
Announcement, okay.
It was as a result of our European tour.
Okay, that's right. We had our podcast
We
tour.
now have a local gig.
Woo!
A show, a live show.
We're having a live show. We are.
On August 29th.
Oh, I know. Isn't it
3 p.m.
exciting?
Sobrato Nonprofit Center in San Jose.
We have a live show.
Yeah, tickets are closing out right now, so we'll for our dedicated listeners, we'll let you know.
Get a hold of us. Let us know you want to come, but we are on for 3 o'clock.
That's right.
August 29th.
It's going to be live, so you know, if we picked on you before, we expect you to show up. And we're going to also
Trey could come down.
Right, Trey. How you been, brother? So, we're gonna sell some swag, like some T-shirts.
We should. We should just go there,
little hats.
Like we're little rock stars and get a limo.
Well, we could. But people have seen our picture, right? Up there?
Yes, they have.
We can have little monkey hats. We can sell. We can do all kinds of stuff.
We could be all about it. But anyway, we do have a live show coming.
All right,
so we'll tell you more about it as it gets closer.
Indeed, and in fact, coming up with this idea, you might think that it's related to our first section. Why would you use that to get high?
Yes.
It might be. Why would you use that
to get high?
Were you high when you thought of that? So here we are. So today, you know what a Boozy Bear is?
I do not know what a Boozy Bear is.
It's not a hug. It's
not
boozy.
A Care Bear, one of those drunk Care Bears.
No, that would be horrible. So this is really interesting. This was new to me, but apparently people are taking the harmless little gummy bear.
Gummy bears?
Yeah. And do you know what they're doing with them at all?
Well, if they're Boozy Bears, I'm guessing.
They're soaking them in vodka.
They're soaking the gummy bears in vodka.
With the other things you were soaking in tampons before, right?
That's right. We have a soaking powder.
So what is it with vodka and soaking?
Vodka and soaking. Yeah.
I didn't know about it. So literally, this is the first thing I did when I go, Boozy Bears.
What?
Well, let me check this out. So I Googled. Google's really great for this. Or as the late Senator McCain used to say, the Google.
The Google, yes.
So, I said the first thing up, and this is not a joke, right out of How to Make Vodka Gummy Bears.
Oh, you got instructions,
That's
Gary.
Right. WikiHow.
WikiHow.
It's the first hit.
Okay,
was
that
WikiHow.
is very funny. Okay.
And it was, put up there. So it gives you the steps. There's about 6 of these steps. I don't think I want to.
How hard could it be? Don't they just dump them in the vodka?
Yeah, they put it in a bowl and they add vodka and make sure it's completely covered. Cover the bowl up with plastic wrap.
Oh, okay. They have to let it soak for a while.
Yeah, taste a piece of candy on the second day, so it takes a while.
Ooh.
Remove the gummy bears from the bowl. Use a spoon to.
So it's a longer-term process.
Yeah.
Not for the impulse control problem, people.
Here's the. Yeah, they're just drinking it and eating at the same time. And here's the last one was serve the gummy bears immediately.
Oh, yeah, serve immediately.
So apparently they're for adult parties, but I was immediately concerned about the health and well-being of, kids.
Oh, yeah, kids. How about them?
And self-disclosure, I do take gummy bear vitamins.
You take gummy bear vitamins?
Yes.
You're adorable.
Yeah, there you go.
Look at you.
So if someone put those in
vodka, that would be very bad, Gary.
Yeah.
But that would explain your behavior at times.
It would, yeah. But at least I'm healthy doing it.
Yes, you are.
So the latest trend, this is years ago this came out, but for teens to get drunk is to soak gummy bears and gummy worms in vodka. And this can be done, of course, in plain sight. You're at school and you have a handful of gummies. You're like, do in your class.
You can just eat knows. Oh, my goodness.
Here you are getting, altered. And so anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, it turns the little treat into a powerful kick.
Wow.
So I was immediately concerned because, here's alcohol poisoning symptoms can include slurred speech, confusion, lack of coordination, double vision, nausea, vomiting, all the different things we would look at when someone is drinking.
Well, how many gummy bears would you have to take to get in trouble, do you think? Did it say?
No, it didn't say.
I wonder.
Yeah. But if you're taking a handful, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a bad combo, sugar and vodka.
Yeah, that is a bad combo. Actually, it could make you sick.
Hides the taste
Ew.
a lot.
But also could make you want to...
Don't ask me how I know that. When I was younger. I don't know.
You're a little defensive right now,
You don't
Gary.
really understand.
You're a little defensive.
As my face color changed. Yeah. Don't ask me how I know that, but it's... trust me.
Okay.
You don't want to mess with that. So I was immediately concerned about little kids, and so I was going to get into, poison centers and all that.
Oh, my goodness.
You can see how a little
I can
kid
see that be a problem.
can grab that, or your dog happens to
Yeah, your dog.
munching on snacks. So, there you go.
There we go.
As if we haven't had enough things infused with
Vodka-soaked gummy bears.
So the next time your teenager's eating a lot of gummies,
You notice that eating a lot of gummies, you need to be suspicious immediately.
You might go,
Like, what's up with the gummies?
Yeah, give me those.
I know. There's so many ways they can get in trouble.
Where'd you get these? My dad. Okay, never mind. That's a whole different program, folks. That's for the 29th.
Well, thank you for sharing the hazards of gummy bears. Now we're going to shift our attention to news in addiction field. And Gary, this was an action-packed one because I had two I was going to do, and then one of our listeners sent me in an even more interesting article.
Really?
I was going to talk about how Google is now banning marijuana delivery companies from selling weed directly through their apps. Okay, you can no longer do that because they're concerned about children. And so you can't you can't use Weed Maps and Ease for in-app ordering. And then,
can I ask you a question? Why do they always think of children after they implement these
exactly
things?
because
I know,
dangerous. Probably because the child gets in trouble, and then they go, "Whoops."
Whoa.
Okay, here's the other one I was going to talk about, which is the video game addictions now officially recognized by the World Health Organization. WHO now calls gaming addiction a pattern of persistent or recurring gaming behavior so severe it takes precedence over life interests. Obviously, the global video game industry is fighting this, but the WHO is now going to add it to the 11th edition of the International's Classification of Diseases, the ICD-11.
ICD codes. Huh?
The next one.
Does that include like poker, online poker, stuff like that?
That's more the gambling.
Okay.
Yeah, this is more gaming.
So, kind of virtual reality type of thing? Or?
Could be, but I'm thinking more like World of Warcraft.
I don't see my gaming back in the day.
Is Pong.
Asteroids.
I loved Centipede.
Asteroids.
I love Centipede.
You're
okay.
like, what's asteroids?
I know. No, and it's Call of Duty. Those kind of stuff.
I don't know what those are.
Okay, it's just as well.
Okay.
All right, but here's what I deferred to because Julie Chin, shout out to Julie, sent me this awesome Atlantic article regarding a landmark study on the origins of alcoholism. Okay, now I'm going to nerd up a little here because this is on research.
Well, you do this well.
I love research, so I'm really nerdy.
Put on a seatbelt, folks.
I am nerdy. Well, apparently, a seasoned psychiatrist, Helig, has joined the National Institute of Health in 2004, because he believed that studying addictive behavior in laboratory rats and mice would pinpoint crucial genes and molecules and brain regions that could be targeted to help with humans. But all of that research so far has not transferred to humans until now. It turns out that was because, he said that we've been studying it the wrong way. Usually they'll let animals self-administer drugs by pressing a lever, which they always learn to do. When humans regularly drink alcohol, only 15% or so become dependent on the stuff. What about the other 85%? Because in the animal things, they all get addicted. So he's like, well, what happens there?
I was curious.
So then this guy, Eric Augier, who studied cocaine addiction, he did this differently. He trained rats to self-administer alcohol and then offered them sugary water too, which mimics real life, in which drugs exist simultaneously with other pleasurable substance. Giving a choice between booze and nectar, most rats chose the latter, but not all of them. Of the 32 rats he first tested, 4 ignored the sugar and kept shooting up with alcohol. 4 rats is laughable, he said, but 620 rats later, no one's laughing. So they tried different rat breeds. They always got the same result. So interestingly, consistently, 15% of them chose alcohol over sugar, the same proportion of human drinkers who progressed to alcoholism. Is it interesting?
Really?
So those alcohol-preferring rats showed other hallmarks of human addiction too. They spent more effort to get a sip of alcohol than the sugar-preferring peers. They kept on drinking even when their booze was spiked with a bitter chemical or paired with an electric shock. And that was striking as a clinician, because embedded in the criteria for diagnosing alcoholism is that people continue to take drugs despite knowledge of the fact it will harm them. So this is a really good study. This is Michael Taffet in neuroscience at the Scripps Research Institute. Since only a minority of humans experience a transition to addiction, it's most likely to identify the specific genetic variants, which is exactly what they found. Apparently, they look for differences in the genes active in brains for alcohol-preferring rats, and they looked at 6 regions they thought were involved in addiction. No difference in 5 of them, but in the 6th region, they found the difference. It's called the amygdala, which is the almond-shaped region that sits in the brain. It's heavily involved in processing emotions. So when Auger looked at the amygdala of the alcoholic rats, he found unusually low activity in several genes, all of which are linked to a chemical called GABA. Okay, because remember, we've got GABA, norepinephrine, we've got dopamine. GABA is a molecular red light. Certain neurons make up and release it to stop their neighbors from firing, and once that's done, they start to pump the molecules back into themselves and then reuse it. But in the amygdala of alcohol-preferring rats, the gene is less active. It makes the does just half the usual levels of the accumulation of GABA, and that means the rats have a difficulty with fear and stress. So they're more anxious, which explains their vulnerability to alcohol.
Wow.
He predicts it'll take another 5 years of work to fully close the loop to understand why, but this recycling pump is important. They took rats that preferred sugar and deliberately reduced the levels of GABA in their amygdala, and again, they turned into addiction-prone prefers rats.
This is huge.
So it looks really the same. This is very exciting. Again, I nerded out when I saw this. I'm like, oh my goodness.
You know what's blowing me away is why you think it took so long.
Wow. Well, you know what we have been looking at is we looked at, for alcoholics, we do know that they do tend to be dopamine depleted. So we do look at them as coming into the world with potentially not enough pleasure, dopa pleasure. I didn't realize they were studying GABA, but that's another one. So anyway, they're hoping that if they can influence these GABA levels in humans more, we can help them control their addictions. And I just thought I could not help myself. I had to share that.
No, that is
Thanks
brilliant.
for putting up with my molecular...
No, that's cool. It's the power of music.
I know, I tell you.
GABA, I'm sorry.
GABA.
I'm thinking
ABBA. Well, ABBA, of course.
ABBA, of course.
But anyway, it's very exciting. Yes. And again, there's not ever going to be a magic pill to cure addiction, but we're making so many breakthroughs regarding craving management and being able to identify people who may be at risk. Because that's the other piece of this. If they can get even more clear about the dopamine levels and the GABA levels, maybe we can even identify people at risk earlier.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, would it be something that people could undergo when they're young, and they could have certain genetic markers that we can address before?
That would be interesting. Yeah. The closer they get to finding these things, I think the more opportunity there is.
We can treat them before they become really substantial problems. And I don't know if there's any correlation between what you just read and alcohol use and abuse and academic performance. Or I don't know what that means.
I can imagine.
But I don't know. Maybe there are behavioral issues or problems forming good relationships. I don't know. Yeah, well, GABA
is really connected to the anxiety stuff. So, yeah, people who have difficulty with GABA do wind up having more prone to PTSD. They're prone to more panic disorders. So, yeah, it's a big deal.
Yes.
That's why they called it a landmark study. And for once, it was not hyperbole. It's the truth.
That's right. Okay.
It's the truth.
No, so contrast all the lovely research you did there into this new study, and then moving on to the next section of our It's our ethics challenge.
Ethics, yay!
Yeah.
Okay, ethics challenge.
And this one is really kind of interesting because it involves one of the most challenged individuals regarding ethics in our country, which is, of course, our president.
I can't even believe you're talking about him and ethics in the same sentence.
But based on, and you switched the articles, and so that article really dovetails very well into what I'm about to read.
Okay, excellent.
So here's the article from Politico. People dying in a ditch, that's quote, unquote. Trump demanded horrifying anti-opioid ads, new book says. So this is one of his folks that worked in his administration. But let's go back for a minute. He wrote a book, but last June, so it was about almost a year ago. Well, no, it wasn't a year ago. We don't know which June it was. No, it was last year.
Probably last year.
6-figure advertising campaign to combat, which that's your first tip-off, 6-figure.
Okay.
So it's not even $1 million.
Okay.
Campaign to combat the opioid epidemic was notable for its gruesome imagery, including a woman intentionally crashing her car and a man shattering his spine beneath a jacked-up vehicle during desperate efforts to acquire prescription drugs. Yeah, why would they do that, right? So anyway, it's all doom and gloom. It was exactly what President Trump envisioned when 2 senior aides kind of pitched the idea. We need to do something for, an opioid messaging type of campaign.
Okay. It's kind of like prevention campaign.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this former staffer, Cliff Sims, who wrote this in his new book, imagine that. This is quoting the president, "We need people dying in a ditch. I want bodies stacked on top of bodies."
Oh, God.
Trump told White House counsel, wait for it, Kellyanne Conway, who has spearheaded the administration's efforts to contain the opioid abuse crisis.
Oh, no.
Kellyanne Conway, what does she know? A pollster and an attorney.
She knows nothing about addiction prevention.
In fact, she's caused more to exacerbate addiction in the country than she has to cure it. And here's his thing. Do it like they did with cigarettes. That's a direct quote from the president. Do it like they did with cigarettes. They had body bags piled over the streets and ugly people with giant holes in their faces and necks.
No.
Now, if you're a person of a certain age, like me,
us,
in grade school, I remember those photos.
I do too.
And the one
remember the black lung? They used to bring the diseased lung to class. Yeah.
And then they show somebody, and it would say the caption would say, "Smoking is glamorous." And they'd have some person that just looked really wrong.
Really tore up. Yeah.
Now, I met a lot of smokers in my life, and that's not what they look like.
They do not look like that.
They don't look like that. So what I really felt at the time was not at the time because I was just a little kid. As I got older, I'm like, that was exploitive of probably some poor homeless person who might be suffering.
Yeah.
I always thought it was exploitive. Anyway, so here's the real thing.
So Trump thinks we need some really nasty, gruesome pictures.
Trump, and here's another thing. Trump had no interest in another proposal, wait for it, to create a website where Americans could share personal stories about the opioid crisis. That might make sense.
That might actually be helpful.
Instead, Trump told Conway he wanted to, quote, develop the most horrifying ads you've ever seen.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So
all the research says it doesn't work.
Well, yeah. So here's some more.
You can't scare straight. It doesn't work like that.
Are you reading my notes?
Man.
Here's another quote. "Me telling people to sign up on a website isn't going to do anything," Trump said, according to the book. "We need to scare kids so much that will never touch a single drug in their entire life. Next thing you know, the kids don't want to be cool and smoke anything anymore." And of course, his first comment does have some validity.
Wow.
"Me telling people to sign up on a website isn't going to do anything." That's because he has no credibility. So the next thing is, we'll scare them into this. So history, remember the DARE program?
Yes, the DARE program.
Remember, which
is still popular, by the way, even though there's no research that it works.
With the police.
Exactly, no research that it works.
Because they could have the Corvette. That's the only reason.
Oh my God.
The Just Say No campaign, of course, Scared Straight.
Yep, Scared Straight.
These are 3 examples, and we can also call them 3 strikes, knowing that this deficit-based, fear-based approach does not work.
It does not.
Much the way the current administration operates.
Wow.
So we know in the modern world, we have what's called positive youth development and asset-based types of ideas.
Right.
And so that's what we focus on. But nope.
Instead, we're just going to have
back in the
gruesome,
30s.
Hideous pictures.
Yep. It reminds me of Reefer Madness.
Oh, I love Reefer Madness. That's only fun if you're high.
It's only fun if you're high. the whole idea is just we're going to scare people into changing their behavior, and that's just not how it works. And I do want to point out, I don't want to dig in too much on this, but remember that the administration wants to scare people, but they don't want to do too much related to the people that distribute the drugs.
Right, exactly.
They get a special pass.
Yeah, they're a little protective.
But once you're addicted and your life is going poorly and you're impacting your community, we're going to blame you. We're going to scare you.
We're going to scare you.
We're not going to do anything to make sure you don't ever get that, and that we improve your community and do all kinds of good things.
Well, honestly, I'm looking here at our code of conduct, and it's pretty straightforward here. D, advertising, marketing, promoting services in a false and misleading manner. That would be that. That is unacceptable behavior. Not beyond the fact it doesn't even work.
Is there anything in the ethics code about, I don't know.
What?
IQ, anything like that?
Like IQ?
Yeah.
Like you should have some IQ?
With the president?
No. You know what we could do with him? We could attribute the fact that he can't put together coherent sentences to some sort of medication use, like street drug.
It could be.
Yeah, we could say, now that would be a scared straight.
So that's it.
Like you could sound like this, children.
Yes. It's a disordered mind right there. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That is really horrible. I have not seen, other than that one where the woman in New York decided, remember, this was probably last year, where she did her detox in Times Square. In the window. In the window. Yeah. I haven't seen those. So obviously somebody must have talked him out of that, because we haven't seen those hideous, just scared.
It's just feeble.
Just scared, Okay, well, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
My apologies.
That's all right, because we're going to shift into our next section, relapse prevention, interesting ways people are staying sober. And I found this also, which I thought was such an interesting thing. It's called, it's a Vox article, Sobriety's Having a Moment. And it talks about influencers. Are sober and sober curious Instagram influencers helpful or harmful for people struggling with addiction? And it's like this idea of sharing your recovery on the Instagram and posting quotes. There's a guy, Cooper, who said he started his 7 Sober Evolution count. He now has 57,000 people. He also has a Sober Evolution website. People tag their friends also in recovery. It exploded. He's part of a growing legion on Instagram, sobriety influencers, where your typical Instagram famous celeb documents and lifestyle of indulgent partying and fancy cocktails. Sobriety influencers post before and after sobriety photos, memes pointing out the amusing side of a substance-free existence, and sponsor sober branded lifestyle products. So it's a agenda that says the sober lifestyle is cool. Cooper says, I think cool is a good word. It's almost rebellious in a sense because of how glorified alcohol and drugs have been for so long. And apparently this trend is growing. WHO says the number of drinkers in the world is decreasing. Teens and young adults alike are a part of this pivot. Actually, young people who do drink are not binge drinking as much as they used to, but that's because they've been shifting to vaping and legal marijuana. So it's not like they've suddenly
and opioids
run into sobriety. But so there's limited statistics to quantify the decrease in millennial drinking, but there is a cultural shift where their social lives aren't as alcohol-centric as they once were. And so this idea of trendsetters who see sobriety as an asset hopefully is playing a role in that. Now, there's a difference between people who need to get sober and those who want to get sober. And unfortunately, the social media tends to conflate the two. So Instagram hashtags like sober curious, sober life, sober Saturday, sober is sexy are connecting to those who are actively recovering from their addiction and those who are sober curious, just wanting to learn more about it. So to be clear, there's a difference between sobriety and recovery. The former applies to those who've given up alcohol and recreational drugs, while the latter is for those who are actively addressing any underlying issues through therapy and treatment programs. So probably one of the most famous is Jennifer Jimenez. And then there's other Vanderpump Rules, Lala Kent. Who has Lala Kent, She's a model and actress influencer with 1 million Instagram followers.
That's why I don't know her.
Yeah. She was, during her current season of Vanderpump Rules, she experimented with sobriety. Since the season's wrap, she's revealed she's an AA. She, in December, wrote an Instagram story about being 60 days sober, and then in March announced she's 5 months sober. So anyway, doctors are pretty optimistic about this. Now,
Really?
yeah, Tessa Jorgensen's a fan, a follower of hip sobriety, quit drinking in 2013 at the age of 23. When she wanted to look into sobriety, she didn't feel AA was for her because she didn't think she was an alcoholic. But with non-AA options like hip sobriety and other online social media savvy programs, there's more options for young people in particular who want to connect with other people who want to be sober. There you go.
How do you feel about that? I have some thoughts.
You have something? Go ahead and tell me your thoughts.
Well, are we in danger of having this co-opted, a really good idea co-opted by those who are trying to maybe solicit others toward their website or toward their other types of activities? You know what I'm saying? They get to fish from that
You're right.
Here.
There are people who would like to sell products and things to recovering people, yes.
Yeah. Or even unscrupulous folks from Palm Beach who might be involved.
Actually, they have showed up on that site.
So okay, I'm not
You're
crazy.
right. You're not crazy.
Thank you.
That is the downside. The bounty hunters, body hunters, people who are looking to turn people into cash have been on these sites as well.
Okay, so I'm not.
No, I know your paranoia always serves you well, my friend. You're right.
Is that related to one of those fancy chemicals you talked about in my amygdala, which is already rather small, probably?
Yes, that is the downside.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the thing. I mean, everything has both. Where again, we know we're always struggling to reach out to young people. It is harder. They are more of a mobile kind of group. They do spend a lot of time on their phones and apps, and so anyway. I just thought I'd throw it out there because the idea of being a sober influencer is part of anti-stigma. And I'm a huge anti-stigma fan, as you know. That's why I have my website, peopleinlongtermrecovery.org. And I feel very positive when people with some social following and status are willing to acknowledge their own recovery, willing to talk about the benefits of recovery. So I'm going to come down on the side of more positive than negative. Okay. Even though there's always a negative, I understand.
I keep wondering if this is a deficit in our modern day culture where people don't get to connect in other ways. Yeah.
Well, you have more. You definitely have a greater reach, right? Where
you do.
I can connect with somebody all the way, across the world who's also in recovery like I am and feel understood.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll take your point. I'll back off on the paranoia.
Thank you. But the paranoia's been noted, and it is correct.
Let me cure that with a couple. There, I just had some gummies. Feeling better now.
Reach into the gummy bowl.
The gummy. They're just vitamins, folks. Don't worry. Okay.
All right.
Just being healthy. So here we are. We're at the end.
Oh, already.
But remember, note to self, live show. August 29th. Vibrato Nonprofit Center.
That's right.
It'll be on the marquee there. We'll give out some free
swag.
Tickets and swag.
Oh, you're so funny.
Some little tufts of hair. We'll call those, it'll be like chimpanzee hair. Because if you see our picture online, that's exactly
that's what we look like.
So there you go. But we're here with, and talk about our humility moment. We're going to have one on August 29th.
Yes, we are. It's going to be embarrassing.
The whole hour or whatever we're going to do is going to be a humility moment. But let's get past that and see if there's anything this week. When you came in, I did a quick inventory. She still has 5 fingers.
I have all my digits.
On each hand. So that's 10, and we totaled 10 on her feet. From what I can tell, no bandages, no scars. Clothing's intact.
I did not use power tools this week. I'm so sorry to report.
So, there you go. So how did it go?
Well, this week was much milder because I'm on a his insane cactus planting phase.
Cactus.
Well, I do love me some succulents, Gary.
How do you?
I do love them because they're hard to kill. And I have the thumbs of death, and so
I'm a little bloody now, but yeah.
So one of the things, but I learned this week. Here's what I learned this week. Did you know that succulents can get sunburn? I thought that all succulents like sun because I think of them as like cactuses, but I've spent a fortune creating a new succulent garden, much to my horror. Gary, this week I noticed some of them had developed these very unattractive brown spots. And I'm like, what the hell? All right, so
and they're not old.
They're age spots. And I'm like, what's happening? And some of their little skin was starting to look a little, tough. And I'm like, how am I killing these things? They're in the sun, they have lots of, anyway. So I had to look it up online, and apparently they have some of the varieties of succulents I have now gotten sunburn. So now on my patio, Gary, I have a sunburn ward of some of these plants I've had to rescue.
And you're misting them?
And I'm having to put them in the shade. I had to look up how to treat them. So I'm going to try to save their little succulent lives because apparently they don't like that much sun. So who knew?
This
I did
is
not
impressive.
know. I did not know. Now I know.
And I'm going to save them. I have a sense you're going to do all you can to save them.
I am. I'm going to do everything I can.
You're going to put them back out there. Then you're going to have a mishap with the power tool and take out like 3 or 4 of them.
That could, of course, happen.
No
particularly
sunburn,
with the blower.
Decap.
But right now, I'm learning that succulents have skin.
They have skin?
They have skin, and they don't want to be in the sun all the time. Some of them really don't like it.
Kind of like us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't know that. So that was my humility moment, that I was managing to kill things that I did not think were even killable. But I was able to discover why.
Okay, and you
I looked it up.
And so would you plant other plants next to them to kind of shade them?
Well, I'm learning that there's varieties of succulents, some of them that like sun.
Okay.
So I'm learning.
I just learned myself. This is perfect news to hear. So,
So that was my moment.
Yeah, I have moments. But I've been reaching in the archives.
Okay.
These go back a long ways, but we'll talk about when I was younger. Had this girlfriend. I was trying to be very, intellectually astute.
I bet you were quite the gay blade when you were young.
Oh, I could be. Particularly using words such as misconstrued. So I was in conversation with him. I said, with her. I said, this point's getting misconstrued. And she said,
no.
What'd you say? Say it again. I said, misconstrued.
Oh, dear.
Well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, it's being misinterpreted or it's being misrepresented, blah, blah, blah.
You were trying to impress her with your big vocabulary.
My big made-up vocabulary.
Wow.
When I was younger, she said, no, it's misconstrued. I'm like, what? It's misconstrued.
Oh, no.
So I doubled down.
Oh, God, Gary.
Nothing worse than an idiot who doubles down. A stooge.
Oh.
So I go, what? No, it's misconstrued. Okay, all right. It's misconstrued. Sure enough,
You had to look it up later.
I did.
You did? Okay.
It's not misconstrued.
Oh.
That's something.
But did it ruin your chances with the girl?
Well, it took. What really happened is it just got rid of any pretense that there's an intellectual bone in my body. I was revealed at that point in my 20s.
You were revealed as the same guy that told people to wipe the toner off their forehead. That's right.
Yeah, you got toner on your forehead. How come everyone does? Man, this is a bad problem in the copy
Gary.
On a Wednesday.
Poor Gary.
Yeah, that was horrible.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you tried to pull it off and it dived. It dived hard.
Yeah. I've had.
You've had more practice now, so hopefully your vocabulary is bigger.
But is it correct? That's the problem. Is it the right words?
Or did I just make that shit up?
I just made these words up. Yeah, because
Okay.
Well, here we are.
Well, here we are, the end of our show. Thank you for joining us again this week. We hope you've enjoyed yourselves as much as, of course, we enjoy ourselves. And we look forward to talking to you next time, and keep the 29th in mind. All righty. Take care.
Take care.